for some questions. Today there's about somewhere in the neighborhood of 24 electric charging stations, maybe 30 in the Willamette Valley right now. And a lot of them have come in. These are public stations, by the way. There may be some private ones that our friends at OEVA have or people have at home, but the public one, there's about 25 to 30 of them around. You've seen some of them from Portland General Electric. Your city has some other sources here. Hillsborough has some. There's some downtown. But there's not a lot of them at the moment, and yet outside of California, we have one of the largest penetrations of charging stations of any place in the United States right now. That's about to change. There's some quick stuff. Level 1 charging is the 110 charging that is a normal outlet. So if you've got, like I'm driving a RAV4 Toyota that's out there that you can look at the end of this presentation. If my battery is depleted and I plug it into a 110 outlet, it's going to take me somewhere between 10 and 15 hours to charge that, because 110 is a lower power stream than 220 is, for instance. Which is to tell you that level 2, which is the kind of the current generation of charging stations, is running at essentially at 208, 220. You can see that none of these metrics or standards may mean much to you, but just recently we've come up with a universal inlet for charging at this rate. And if I took my RAV4 and charged at level 2 charging, a depleted battery, it would take me somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 to 8 hours to fully recharge that. And then for those of you who are interested in supercharged charging, because you wanted to go in your electric vehicle and drive up to Seattle, this one will, not fully recharge, but will charge you back up at about 80%, take a depleted battery and charge it up in about 20 minutes, 15, 20, 25 minutes, somewhere in that range. So that becomes important when you think about having to refuel. It's not the same as going to the petrol station, to the Chevron station, and getting a big gulp and fueling up your car in about 3 minutes time. It's going to take a little more based on today's technology. But we'll come back to that in a minute. I just want you to know, you don't care about whether it's level 1, level 2, or level 3, but there are different tiers of capability that will be available to you if and when you become an electric vehicle operator. Okay? Now, don't worry a lot about the data, but I want you to know this. This is very significant. Oregon and us in the Portland region in particular are the beneficiary of a recently awarded U.S. Department of Energy grant known as the EV, that's electric vehicle, is the EV project. It's being led by a grantee out of Arizona known as ETEC. And it was a $100 million grant, and currently and over the next 15 months, ETEC, the grantee off of this, will be installing in Oregon public infrastructure to the tune of about 1,000 devices, most of which are level 2 devices that will be going into the Portland region, and also Salem, and also Corvallis, and also Eugene. Oregon is one of 5 test markets. Another one is the Puget Sound area in Seattle, San Diego, Phoenix, Tucson, and then 3 cities in Tennessee, which is the home of the Tennessee Valley Authority. That's important. And it's also the North American headquarters of Nissan, which is one of the pioneers in the introduction of current generation electric vehicles. Now, your Department of Energy at the federal level has decided to fund this because they want to find out, in a sense, not merely how the mechanics of charging works with cars. They want to understand the sociology and the anthropology of How many charging stations need to be put in place? Where should they be? In other words, how do we human beings respond to the network in the new way so that they can take the lessons learned from Oregon and generalize and share those elsewhere? So it signals to you that at the moment your government and certain industry leaders believe that this noble experiment is so important that it will be researched, studied, understood, corrected, and shared nationally in the next few years. So if you like being a guinea pig, I want you to feel real proud that Oregon was selected to be probably the most significant site for this experiment. And if you don't like it, then don't beat me up. I'm just the messenger. Anyway, you're going to see a bunch of charging stations in the next year. That's the key message.
But where are they going to be?
Where are they going to be? That's a very loaded question, but let me ask you, I'll tell you where they will be. Nissan, which is, I'd say, a foundation player in this, is producing a new vehicle, which I'll come back to very shortly. It's called the Nissan Leaf, and it's coming to Oregon. Oregon is their launch market, and it's going to be launched here in December. They're going to be selling about 900 of those, and for the initial 900 who are chosen to participate in this e-tech project, you get a free home charging station. Free one for home.
I want one.
You may want one, but if you agree to this pact with Nissan and e-tech, you'll also be agreeing to share data about how you drive the car, where you drive the car, and so forth. So if you drive the car and go to the bar a lot, you may not want to. That's up to you, but there is a bit of a quid pro quo that if you get the free charging station, you also have some responsibilities to report and allow yourself to be tracked. One other, well, we'll come back to a sidebar. Somebody remind me when I talk about the Leaf to make sure we underscore the importance of April 20th, 5 days after you pay your taxes. Okay, here's the deal. I want to take this segment to talk to you about battery electric vehicles, okay? You don't care about that per se, but these are vehicles that run 100% of the time on electric batteries. The car I drove out here today is one such vehicle. Check it out. The range on this, typically about 100 miles. Now, whatever type of car you have, whatever type of internal combustion engine vehicle that you have, you probably have a range of 300 to 400 miles. So you might go, well, that car's not for me because it only goes 100 miles. But here's another quiz for you. Do you know what the average is of average vehicle miles traveled in the Portland area is? Per day.
24.
40? 40 is too high.
24.
24 is too high.
18.
18 is too high. It's about 13 or 14 miles. Now, yours may be higher. But I'll tell you, I live over by Reed College. My wife works downtown. She goes, down to Front Avenue and back. I mean, she could ride on a battery electric vehicle all week long. That's not a problem for us. And we have two cars. So if one of them was a battery electric vehicle car, we could get along fine. But when we go down to Corvallis or Eugene for football games, or I go up to Seattle on business, I need to have a different kind of car. So I'm either going to go to the rental place to Hertz, or I'm going to go to Zipcar, or I'm going to go over to your house and borrow your car from you. Okay, here's a key point though. This is, nominally these produce no emissions. In fact, if you go look at my RAV4 out there, there's no tailpipe on it. There's no carbon emissions. Now the fact that I'm running off of PGE power, and much of that is coming off of the Boardman plant, the coal-fired plant at Boardman, some people argue that that's a bogus claim to call it a zero-emission vehicle because the power was generated by coal. I don't want to get into that argument with you, but I simply would say that these vehicles are less worse than our internal combustion engine vehicles, even my little Mini Cooper.
About 1/3